Here's a question that should bother you. Why is a military manual written in 500 BC still being read by hedge fund managers, football coaches, and Pentagon strategists today? Sun Tzu didn't write a philosophy. He didn't write poetry. He wrote a survival guide for a world so violent, so unstable, that getting strategy wrong didn't mean losing a promotion. It meant losing your head, literally. To understand the art of war, you first have to understand the world that produced it. China in the 5th century BC was not a unified empire. It was a fractured, brutal landscape of competing kingdoms, constantly swallowing each other whole. This period, known as the Warring States era, was centuries of near-permanent warfare between states that understood one truth above all others: the weak do not survive. Sun Tzu was a general who operated in this environment. According to historical accounts, he served King Helu of Wu, and the results speak for themselves. He turned a second-rate kingdom into a military power capable of defeating states 3 times its size. But what makes Sun Tzu remarkable isn't that he won battles. It's that he thought about why battles are won before they're ever fought. That insight, that war is decided before the first sword is drawn, is the entire foundation of the book, and it runs completely against how most people, then and now, think about conflict. War, in Sun Tzu's framing, is a problem to be solved as efficiently as possible, and the most efficient solution is almost always the one that requires the least actual fighting. That's a profoundly counterintuitive idea, and it remains one. Sun Tzu opens with a line that sets the entire tone. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Think about what he's actually saying. The goal is not victory in battle. The goal is victory, and battle is a last resort, not a first instinct. War for Sun Tzu is expensive, unpredictable, and exhausting. Even winners bleed. So the genuinely skilled strategist doesn't ask, how do I defeat my enemy? He asks, how do I make defeating my enemy unnecessary? This is where the political science angle becomes critical. Sun Tzu isn't writing about tactics in isolation. He's writing about power, how it's built, how it's projected, how it's preserved. And his argument is that information and deception are more powerful than force. All warfare is based on deception, he writes. Know your enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Conceal your own. Make your enemy react to you, not the other way around. This is still the operating doctrine of every major intelligence agency on Earth. The Cold War was not primarily fought with weapons. It was fought with disinformation, proxy conflicts, and psychological pressure. Sun Tzu would have recognized it immediately. Before any campaign, Sun Tzu lays out 5 factors that determine the outcome of conflict: moral law, heaven, earth, command, and doctrine. Let's unpack that, because it's more sophisticated than it sounds. Moral law is whether the people support their ruler, whether soldiers believe in what they're fighting for. This is political legitimacy. A general who loses the trust of his own troops has already lost, regardless of his battlefield skill. Sun Tzu understood what took Western political theory another 2 millennia to formalize. That power is ultimately a social contract. Heaven refers to timing, seasons, weather, circumstances beyond human control. Earth is terrain, geography, the physical conditions of the conflict. Together, they represent the environment that the strategist must read and adapt to, not fight against. The lesson? You don't choose your environment. You work with it. Command is the quality of leadership: wisdom, courage, discipline, and humanity. And doctrine is the organizational structure behind the army, how it's supplied, managed, and rewarded. In modern terms, this is institutional capacity. The best strategy fails without competent execution. Sun Tzu's point is that victory isn't a moment. It's the cumulative result of all 5 factors being aligned before the battle begins. When Napoleon invaded Russia in 1812, he ignored heaven and earth, the brutal winter, the vast terrain. He had military genius and lost anyway. Sun Tzu had written his obituary 2,300 years earlier. One of the most modern-feeling sections of The Art of War is Sun Tzu's treatment of intelligence and espionage. He dedicates an entire chapter to spies, not because spying is dishonorable, but because it is essential. He writes that foreknowledge cannot be obtained from ghosts or spirits, nor from calculation. It must come from men who know the enemy's situation. This is a direct attack on superstition and overconfidence. In a world where generals consulted oracles before battles, Sun Tzu said, "Talk to someone who's been inside the enemy camp. Pay them well. Protect them." Because accurate information is worth more than 10,000 soldiers. The parallel to today is almost uncomfortable. Cyber warfare, satellite surveillance, signals intelligence, these are all expressions of the same principle. The 2016 US election interference, the disinformation campaigns that have destabilized democracies across Europe, the corporate espionage that costs the global economy hundreds of billions annually. These are all contests of information superiority. Sun Tzu's framework doesn't just explain them, it predicted them. Here's where Sun Tzu makes his most elegant argument, and it comes wrapped in a metaphor. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe he is facing. Water doesn't insist on a fixed form. It finds the path of least resistance, fills every available space, and erodes even the hardest stone over time. Not through force, but through persistence and adaptability. Sun Tzu says the great commander operates the same way. This is the antithesis of rigid doctrine. The strategist who says we always attack from the left flank is handing his enemy a roadmap. Predictability is vulnerability. The ability to read a situation in real time, adapt, and strike where least expected, that's the actual skill being described. This principle translates directly to any competitive environment. In business, the companies that collapse are rarely defeated by superior products. They're defeated by their inability to adapt. Kodak had the digital camera technology and chose not to develop it. Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix for $50 million and passed. They were rigid. The water became ice, and it shattered. Sun Tzu dedicates several chapters to the strategic use of strength versus weakness, and his argument cuts against military intuition. Most generals want to attack where the enemy is weakest. Sun Tzu goes further. Make the enemy be where you want them. Shape the battle before it happens. Invincibility lies in the defense, the possibility of victory in the attack. One defends when his strength is inadequate. He attacks when it is more than adequate. Know when you're strong. Know when you're not. Don't attack from a position of weakness out of pride or political pressure. This is the mistake that destroyed countless empires. From the Roman overextension in Germania to the US engagement in Vietnam, where military superiority was applied against a conflict that was never primarily military in nature. Vietnam is a Sun Tzu case study in reverse. The Viet Cong had internalized nearly every principle in the book: mobility, deception, asymmetric warfare, knowledge of terrain, moral law in the form of genuine ideological commitment. The United States had overwhelming conventional force and applied it in a context where conventional force was the wrong tool. Sun Tzu's text doesn't ask who has more weapons. It asks who has better understanding of the enemy, of the environment, of themselves. Buried inside the art of war is a message that many of its admirers skip past because it's not inspiring. It's a warning. Sun Tzu is explicit that prolonged war destroys the state that wages it. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. He calculates the economic drain with ruthless precision. The cost of supplying an army in the field, the depletion of resources, the political instability that follows long campaigns. This is the passage that should be mandatory reading in every legislature on Earth. The states that have ignored it have paid the price with remarkable consistency. The Soviet Union in Afghanistan, the United States in Iraq. The financial cost of the Iraq War has been estimated at over $2 trillion, and counting. The political fragmentation it produced continues to reshape the Middle East. Sun Tzu wasn't a pacifist. He believed in war as a tool. But he understood that a tool used beyond its purpose becomes a liability. Every campaign has a point of diminishing returns, and the strategist's job is to know exactly where that point is. Here's the most persistent misreading of The Art of War, and it matters. People treat it as a formula, a list of rules, a competitive cheat code you can apply mechanically. That misses the entire point. Sun Tzu's text is structured as principles, not procedures, because procedures break down the moment reality diverges from expectation. What Sun Tzu is actually teaching is a way of thinking about conflict. Flexible, clear-eyed, ego-free thinking. The strategist who reads "Attack where the enemy is weak" and immediately starts looking for weaknesses without first understanding the broader picture has learned nothing. The book requires the reader to become the kind of person who can apply its principles: patient, perceptive, self-aware, disciplined. That's not a technique, it's a character trait. And it's exactly why the book has survived 2,500 years while the empires of its time have all turned to dust. The text is not asking you to be clever, it's asking you to be wise. The difference is everything. Sun Tzu wrote, "The art of war in a world on the edge of collapse," for leaders who couldn't afford to be wrong. 25 centuries later, the world looks different. But the underlying problem hasn't changed. Resources are limited, competition is permanent, and the gap between good strategy and catastrophic failure is often a single miscalculation. His core warning is simple: know yourself, know your enemy, and do not fight battles you don't need to fight. That's not a military lesson. That's a philosophy for navigating any world where stakes are high and the cost of failure is real. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deeper look into the strategic philosophy behind the art of war, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell. Join us as we continue to dive into the ideas, events, and figures that shaped the world we live in. See you next time.